Good evening. Welcome to the Needham Zoning Board of Appeals for today, Thursday, June 20th, 2024. First on our agenda is the minutes from our May 16th meeting. Have you gentlemen who were not at the meeting reviewed the minutes? Don't want to say where people were who were here today, but is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll put a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's approved. The minutes are approved. Second on the agenda, Mr. Junta. Would you like to come up and join us? Now, this is your third. Actually, it's not. The first one, we had a quorum issue, so we requested that you ask for a continuance. The second one was yours, asking for a continuance.
That's right.
A variance. And now you're here with another request to withdraw your application without prejudice.
That's correct. So after, well, actually, first say George Cinta Jr. for the applicant Saybrook Construction. So after that last continuance, the message was received about not entertaining further continuances. And unfortunately, my clients and their design team did not act swiftly enough to revise the plans and coordinate with the building commissioner. So therefore, they were unprepared to move forward at this time. As a result, rather than ask for a further continuance and then possibly another continuance, and it was decided to just pull the application and revisit, revise, and potentially in the future maybe come back, but basically reevaluate from scratch.
Is there some thought of coming in for something as a matter of right?
Possibly. I can't really speak to that just now.
Okay, so there's a request for withdrawal without prejudice of the application for a variance. Is there a motion to approve that?
I move that we approve that request.
Is there a second?
Second.
I would agree, 3-0, the withdrawal is approved without prejudice.
Thank you.
The next hearing, unfortunately, is scheduled for 7:45, so we need to wait until 7:45. So we'll take about a 8-minute recess, and we'll come back. The withdrawal messed up the schedule.
I know.
We have a fine-tuned machine.
I did think of putting them at the same time. Occasionally I do All right.
Well said. So we're back. It's 7:45, and this is an application of the Boston Swim School LLC, doing business as the Goldfish Swim School. And they've applied for a special permit under sections 3.242, 511, 512, 513, and other applicable sections to permit a private school to adjust the hours of operation, increase the limit on number of students to 50, increase the limit on the number of staff to 28, to allow quote-unquote family swims and birthday parties as a form of open swim without direct instruction or class accessory to the main use, and amend the existing special permit issued by this board by waiving strict adherence to the number of required parking spaces and the parking plan design requirements of the bylaw. The property is located at 45 4th Avenue in the New England Business Center zoning district. Evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
And for the record, your name and who's with you?
Yes, I am George Junta Jr., attorney representing the applicant, and with me this evening is Adrian Eagles. He's a representative of the swim school. Yes, so as indicated, this is property at 45 4th Avenue that is located in the New England Business Center district. It is a 45,041 square foot lot with 150 feet of frontage on 4th Avenue that's occupied by a one-story commercial building containing 13,138 square feet of space. The building has been occupied since late 2014, approximately, by the Goldfish Swim School under a prior Board of Appeals decision dated September 18th, 2014, that was amended the following month in October 2014, that allowed for the use of the building for a private school for swim instruction purposes and granted a parking waiver for design requirements. That decision included a number of conditions and restrictions, including limitations on the hours of operation, maximum number of students that could be in the pool at any one time, maximum number of staff that could be on site, and that swim was only allowed with instruction and no open swim was allowed. So since opening in 2014, the business has grown and evolved, and recently, back in February, Board of Health, as a part of their regular inspection of the pool in connection with health requirements, noticed some discrepancies between the conditions in the Board of Appeals permit and the operations at the site. That triggered an inquiry and flushed out the discrepancies. Ultimately, it came to me, and in looking at it, we know one of the issues was an increase in the number of students, which therefore triggered a review of parking, which therefore triggered a recognition that a parking study would be prudent, if not necessary. So we had the parking study done, and then once we got the parking study back, we put together the application to basically amend the prior decision to bring it into consistency with the actual current operation.
Can I ask you, and I haven't read your entire memorandum, but can you highlight the deviations from our decision? Because I was one of the panelists on that decision.
Okay, yep.
And then besides all the other things you're trying to.
Right. So the deviations are essentially what we're asking for relief for tonight.
Oh, really?
And so one of those is the hours of operation. There is roughly a half an hour in the morning on one day when the school is open that's outside of the hours that were previously approved by the board. The number of students in the pool at any one time, the board had permitted 30, and there are generally a maximum, not always, but a maximum of 50 in the pool at any one time. The number of staff is also higher. The board had previously allowed 12, and at given times, that would be a maximum of 28. And then last, and probably both important but also not important in a way, is they also have these two open swim periods. One is a family swim, and the other one is the birthday parties. And I'll get into that as a part of my main talks. But in the original decision, because it was billed as a private school, there was a condition that there be no open swims whatsoever. So as I'll explain when I get to it, the open swims are really minor in the operation. They're accessory, but they're an important part because they tie into the
For full disclosure, how long do you think the deviations have been going on?
no idea.
Any
I
idea?
was gonna double click on that. How often does the Board of Health inspect them?
How often did the Board of Health?
My knowledge is they come in yearly.
So we rely on, obviously, building department, conservation perhaps, Board of Health to do this due diligence to make sure you're in compliant with the terms. So I'm surprised that over 10 years, no one's raised this before. And you had a permit and it was pretty clear. But anyway, that's the mood. So let's hear.
Understood. I would expect, I mean, the hours, the extra half hours probably, that's a minor thing. The number of students probably just crept up over time, and that's not necessarily the sort of thing that, I guess, depending upon the day and the time that the inspection is done. It's not like the pool has 50 students in it every day, all the time.
Is the swim school a chain?
It's a franchise.
Yeah.
It's a franchise. Is it the same owners for the last decade?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, George.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, so I guess, I mean, really, so this is why I say in some ways the biggest issue is the open swims, but that's also the smallest issue because it's only an accessory component, not a principal use. All right, so anyway, so getting back to, let's see, where was I? You actually covered a fair amount of this now. Right, so let's talk about the open swims, because that is the biggest probably deviation with respect to substance. So there are two forms of open swims. One, as I've mentioned, is a family swim, and the primary purpose for that is to give current students who are members of the program an opportunity to kind of practice what they've learned through their individualized or class instruction. But it also allows them to do that with their parents, so it kind of allows for a bonding and a practice session at the same time. It's not instruction driven, but that doesn't mean that there isn't instruction provided. It's just not done in a formal class type approach. And the family swims are only held primarily 3 days, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays for an hour each of those days. Excuse me. And then also on Fridays for 2 hours in the afternoon. So that's not time-wise, doesn't occupy a substantial amount of the schedule. It's a very small amount of the schedule. The other form of open swim is the birthday parties, which are only held on Saturday afternoons for a period of 2 hours with a maximum of 24 students, generally overseen by at least 3 staff. And those are only able to be booked by existing members. So they're not open to the general public, but the members can book them and then they can obviously bring people who are not members. And both of these, both the family swim and the birthday parties, give people who are contemplating membership an opportunity to kind of try it before they actually sign up. So it's like it's a feeder essentially for the regular membership. So in that sense, it's an important part of the operation, but it's also accessory because it's a small amount in terms of number of students or number of participants and hours that occupy the space. So that's probably the biggest sort of deviation with respect to the prior special permit. Looking at the increased enrollment in students, as I indicated, it'd be a maximum of 50 at any given time, but doesn't mean that there would be 50 at all times. And just as a side note, you probably, if you read through the detailed parking study, you will have seen that there's quite a variation in enrollment that goes throughout the day. But at the maximum time, there could be as many as 50 students in the pool. With that increased enrollment from going from 30 up to 50, it obviously has a parking effect. Now, when the swim school was first approved and authorized, the parking calculation and the parking demand that was applied was sort of an ad hoc, based on an ad hoc analysis. Essentially what they did is they took the number of students and they did 1 parking space for each student, the number of staff with 1 parking space for each staff, and then they doubled the number of students to cover any overlap in classes. So at the time, originally, it was 20 students were expected with 11 staff. So the 20 students got doubled, and then you add the staff on it, and it wound up with a requirement of 51 parking spaces. Now, obviously, if you think about it for a minute, first off, we're dealing with generally small children. The children themselves don't drive, so they have to be brought there. So some of those children are likely going to have siblings that are also attending the program. So you're gonna have multiple in one car. Some will probably be attending with friends, again, multiple in one car. That didn't get reflected at all in the calculation. They just simply, I think they looked at it as they had enough parking spaces to meet that, so they went for the ultra conservative approach. And they simply doubled the number of students, figuring if both sets overlap, then there's enough for all.
And who did that? And who doubled it? And who?
I believe it was actually the landlord's, either the architect or somebody else that had done the analysis. And
Because you presented that to us.
I did.
Well, whoever
Yeah.
was the applicant.
Right. Yeah, it was, and I said, I think if you look at it, kind of you look back in the record, it looks like they probably just said, well, let's just double it because, that's the safe thing to do, and we have plenty of parking anyways. So there was no issue, because with the parking demand of 51, and there are 53 parking spaces on site, it was less than the number of spaces, so there's no parking waiver required for the number of spaces.
But you also, at the time, were coming in as a school, not an indoor athletic facility. You gave the two different analysis.
Oh, let me get to that, because that's an interesting little wrinkle. So when I look at it now, and I look back and I say the way they did it then was probably too conservative. You now look, you go to the bylaw, you say, all right, well, what category does it fit into in the bylaw? And this is part of why they did it, is because there really isn't a clear category in the bylaw. So the first category you can look at is this category for high schools, vocational schools, colleges, and so on, where you would expect every student probably to have a car, especially in the college end. And for that, the parking demand would be 1/2 of design or expected enrollment. So in this case, if you're talking about 50 students, that means 25 spaces. Admittedly, that feels low. And it feels low, not only to me from just a general objective standpoint, but also when we get to the parking study, it's significantly below what the parking study found. So I would say, although that's the starting point, that's probably not the landing spot. It's probably not a correct landing spot. So then you look at, well, what's the next sort of closest category in the bylaw that might apply? And that indeed would, in my eyes, be the indoor athletic or recreational, because basically it's kind of the same thing. It's a pool. Even though it's being used primarily for instruction, it's sort of a recreational facility. You have people coming for short periods and then leaving. Some of the function is similar, not exactly the same, but I figured it's worth looking at that because that gives us some idea of maybe what the parking demand should be. So when you look at that category, there are two different methodology under the bylaw that you can use. One is based on square footage, and if you do the calculation based on square footage, you wind up with a parking demand of 98 spaces based on the increased enrollment of 50 students. Then there's another one which is based upon anticipated enrollment, basically, or anticipated peak volume. And based on that, you wind up with a parking demand of 78. I would argue, in large part because of the results of the parking study, that for purposes of the bylaw, that perhaps that is the correct standard to use, the 78. And I say that because, as I mentioned, we did a parking study, and it was a pretty in-depth parking study. It took a snapshot of actual use for the swim school. It looked at the actual demand and use of the parking spaces, both on-site and on the on-street parking spaces. What they found was that there was a maximum, at any given time, the absolute maximum was 73, I believe, students, or 73 people in the facility. What they did find was there was a general observed maximum demand with respect to the parking of 67 spaces. Now, 67 is obviously in excess of the 53 on site, but in addition to the 53 parking spaces on site, there are also a number of parking spaces available on street. And so when you take those into account, there are actual 76 total available spaces, which are a bit more than the 67 observed peak demand. So, but looking at the 67 peak demand and the 73 people on site tracks somewhat, it's still a little bit less than the 78 spaces that would come out on the calculation based on the anticipated enrollment for the indoor athletic facility standard. So to my eye, if you're applying a standard under the bylaw, that's probably the closest standard. If you look at the raw numbers, it would be something like 73 or 67. In any event, as the traffic consultant, traffic engineer determined, there is ample and adequate parking to support the current enrollment. And while I don't know definitively when the enrollment expanded to its current size, it's some point over the years. And the swim school has been in operation for approximately almost 10 years now, and there have been no issues with parking. So one of the things to note is that the peak demand time for the swim school is Saturday mornings. This property is located in the New England Business Center District, as indicated at the beginning. New England Business Center District generally is occupied by office use. The office use is usually not around on Saturdays. So the on-street
There's a lot of
parking,
hairstyling places around that attack, because I've gone there. You can't find a parking space Saturday mornings.
in the New England Business Center,
Yeah, right near my hairstylist,
where's your hairstylist?
right around the corner.
The hairstylist is directly across from the swim school.
Personal observation.
Really?
I don't go there anymore.
Can't get parking.
All right, well, maybe there's difficulty parking because of the swim school, but in any event, there are generally, you don't have the.
You know what I'm talking
No,
about.
I do, yeah, on one side of that, on the other side is what he's talking
Business,
about, so
yes.
there, you know, there's. I would say
Everywhere
I would
else-
say the majority is, yes. but
Everywhere else, there
definitely
is
a hair
business and
salon
corporate,
there.
except right there.
You are absolutely right, and frankly, the people in the hair salon park at Goldfish Swim School much more often than people at Goldfish park over there, because they are coming in like random times in the morning on a weekday or afternoons, it's just easier to get through that lot. Not to sidetrack us though.
All right, so in addition to the fact that the peak is on a Saturday morning when presumably, arguably, there are more spaces available than there would be during the week when the office buildings are more occupied. In addition, with respect to the increase in staff, only between 30 to 40% of the staff generally park either on site or anywhere near the site. Approximately 60 to 70% of the staff find alternative means of transportation. And as I'm sure that Adrian can attest to, a good number of the staff are actually high school students or people who don't have cars, so they have to use alternative transportation such as bicycling, public transportation, Ubers, carpooling, and so on. And in fact, as noted in the traffic study and in my memo, the swim school does have a robust policy to encourage staff to find alternative methods of transportation so that they do not occupy parking spaces. So they do things like requesting people do carpooling, providing secure bike locks, storage inside the building, basically to really make sure that the employees minimize the parking use. But the biggest thing that
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry, there's a lot of numbers. And can I take you back just for a minute?
sure.
You say when the parking consultant did their count of actual occupied spaces and came up with 67, that there were 73 people inside the building? Is that correct, or?
That's what you said.
I'm gonna find it in my notes here. So that was not, they're not tied together. So the 73 actually comes from enrollment numbers. The 67 comes from observed parking numbers.
Okay, so you're saying it could be that.
So the peak
73
enrollment,
Right,
the peak number of people that was at the building at any given time
Right.
during the period of the study was 73, which does not necessarily track to when there were 67 parking spaces occupied.
He saw the spaces, he didn't see the people.
Right. Right, because they just go around, they count number of open spaces, number of occupied spaces.
Could have been 100 people in there, we don't know. Right?
Right. Well, no, because we do know Well, I should say,
Well, no, because there wouldn't have been more than 78 people inside, they're saying, because there wouldn't have been more than 50 kids and more than 28 staff.
right.
Is what I'm saying. So-
Parents.
You've got a parent with the kids and the.
You could have siblings hanging around waiting.
True. Yeah.
So you could clearly have more than that.
Right.
And there usually is. There has to be.
Right.
Mother takes 3 kids in there, 1 kid's swimming, the other 2 kids are coloring or whatever they do.
Right, but mom's not an enrollee and siblings aren't an enrollee.
I know. 73 enrollees,
Right.
73 cars, 2 or 3 kids per car. You have more people. Now, you can finish your discussion. You don't have to.
No, all I'm saying is it seems to me like there's almost a 1-to-1 correlation between the number of enrollees, students plus staff, and I'm not counting moms and I'm not counting siblings, and cars.
Close,
Yeah.
but that's not capacity, what's actually in there.
Well, you're right, because there's 76 parking spaces. All right. So they're 9 under at peak.
Yeah, personally, my concern is not really on the parking. I think there's plenty of parking except the hair salon on Saturday mornings. It's more the capacity, so can I you had more questions?
No, go ahead,
I read
I'll
in
loop
the
back later.
comments,
Yeah.
and we'll get through the comments from the other
Yeah.
municipal departments. You have a capacity on your pool permit of 100 people.
In the pool,
Who issues the pool permit? Board of Health?
yes,
And they capped it at 100.
yes.
Yeah, that's the number we've been, like, we're thought was the.
Parents with the kids.
Inside of the actual
Pool.
like pool, because that has to do with square footage of the pool and the safety of that. We do not have, we never have 100 people inside the pool. But that is what the Board of Health gave us.
So they're recommending something in that area. So you've seen their comments? Board of Health?
Comment.
I saw their comment about the pool capping at 100.
Right. And
I don't
lifeguards?
think, I think that's them just saying that, like, in the pool kind of world, a pool of this size,
No, they have a permit that has a capacity.
I understand that,
Yeah,
but I think that comes from a technical calculation of the size of the pool, not a practical use.
I think it's probably a safety issue.
Full equivalent of the ITE per generation.
Yes, yes.
Right, for the size of the pool, the amount of open space and so on.
Yeah, number of exits.
And to go back, Peter, actually, so looking at the traffic study,
Yeah.
getting to your specific question, right? So that 73 figure, right, comes from Saturday, March 9th at 10:30 a.m. Which is, right, so it's one of the attachments to the report. So Saturday, March 9th at 10:30 a.m., 73 was the maximum enrollment, right? And then if you look at, on the observed parking, Saturday, March 9th at 10:30 a.m., there's not a number on this, but it's less than 60 parking spaces occupied.
Yeah, it's like 46 or something, yeah, plus
Yeah.
16.
So it's not 1-to-1, it's something less than, it's what, maybe 0.7 to 1, 0.6 to 1, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So in fact, and that actually goes to prove the point, is that there is adequate parking to support the demand. And I was getting to the point that also, well, we don't know exactly when, the increased enrollment sort of hit the peak, but this facility has been in operation for some time, and presumably it was some time ago. In 10 years, they've not had an incident with parking. There's not been a complaint to the police, to the building department, to engineering, to Board of Appeals, to anybody, because there's just not been a problem. So I would submit that really speaks volumes, that this isn't like a use coming in and saying, well, we're going to do this and this is our anticipated and whatever. This is a use that's been in operation for a while. This is just capturing what they're actually doing. There's been no complaints with what they're actually doing. This is just essentially addressing the permitting and the sort of the technical side.
And where you're actually operating well beyond the contours of your permit.
Even after the Board of Health came in and said you're operating beyond the contours of your permit.
Correct.
Well, but so when the Board of Health came in, that triggered the review, and we started having discussions. When it first came up, I was actually in Florida, we talked about it, it was agreed that they would take action once we identified the various issues.
I don't
and
think
so-
anybody here is faulting the swim school for being proactive and coming in and saying, look, our operation has changed, it's gotten bigger, we're doing things that are permit, which was a new use in a different industrial park. It was an industrial park then, 10 years ago, it was different. Had some residences going in, the 40Bs were starting, it was a very different world then. So I would say also in 10 years, and some of the commentary I'll read, there's been no issues. And except for, I don't have to get into that, there's plenty of parking. So if you want to conclude or anything, because I do want to get these comments in the record.
I think I'm just gonna pick up your last statement that there's plenty of parking to support the actual use as it's being conducted. So we would request that the board grant the requested relief to conform the permits to the actual use and have, so that the swim school can keep going and continue to teach students how to swim.
So that begs the next question. How do we make sure it's not 75 students and 45 staff and increasing? You have a special permit and that has limitations on it. So how are we going to manage that? Because it wasn't done.
Right. It's a fair question. I mean, unfortunately, the short answer is there's not a standard really sort of mechanism for that, other than if it did ramp up and there was an issue, then somebody would file a complaint. So for example, if clients were parking in the office buildings and causing a problem, then I would expect they would complain first to the swim school. And if the swim school didn't address it, then they would complain to the Board of Health or the building department or planning, or somebody would get a complaint at some point.
I think something else is needed. I think your applicant, your client has to take affirmative steps of shutting down enrollment and keeping that capacity and making sure and monitoring how many people are in the family swim, and how many families, and how you sign up for that in advance. So it's great that someone complains, but the reality is no one probably will complain, but that doesn't mean you should void your special permit and just ignore it.
Agreed.
So that's what I'm looking for, some affirmative obligation on the applicant to monitor it. And I don't know who's gonna go in besides the Board of Health to check your enrollment.
And would maybe annual reporting or biannual, some sort of a regular reporting mechanism?
Not here.
Building inspector? Building commissioner?
We can discuss it a little bit. I just want to get these on the record first of all.
But to that point, let me also add in, for what it's worth, so when we went through the parking study, one of the things the parking engineer asked about was, with respect to numbers of past enrollment, projected enrollment, and so on, and specifically asked, what about future? Are you going to, what if your program grows? And the reply back is, we're basically at the capacity of the building. We can't operate. I'm sure Adrian can.
Safety is what we do, right? So the reason we teach swim lessons in the first place is because drowning is the #1 cause of death for kids between the age of accidental death for kids between the ages of 1 and 3. So everything for us starts with safety inside of that building. The use of that pool is an extremely dangerous place just in general, because these are small kids who don't know how to swim, and so we have very strict guidelines based around that safety, and we exceed Massachusetts expectations, because frankly, I can't sleep at night if something were to happen to one of those kids. That's the priority there. I can't remember what the question was. I'm sorry, I just focused on safety and I got distracted. But what was the general?
So the general is that when asked by the traffic engineer, would the operation increase or add things?
So we only have space to safely do the number of lessons that we're doing. So on a Saturday at the time, the 10:30 time, that's literally what that pool can fit from a safe standard. There's just nothing, you'd have to build another pool to actually function.
So the limits and requests for the increases are your capacity?
Yes.
Okay. And what I'm saying is we have to monitor that and make sure it is. And we can talk about that. Okay. We had comments from the Board of Health, obviously. they found you out. And I don't think that's a negative way. I think the Board of Health did their job, and you, as a good corporate citizen, for 10 years now, have come forward and said, we have to upgrade this. So they stated, and if you haven't read it, I'm going to read it into the record because this is the most important one. Per Mass Pool Code regulation requirements, they need to ensure that there is one certified lifeguard per 25 patrons swimming in the pool. If you're proposing to increase the numbers to 50, you must be able to, and have these birthday parties and this family swim, public health will need to ensure that you have sufficient documentation submitted for their records to show that you'll be able to accommodate the regulation requirements with having sufficient lifeguards on site. So our decision, if we decide to rule in your favor, is going to have that as a condition. And I think it's probably an annual requirement. And to keep in mind, I don't know if this is to us or you, your pool permit states you can only accommodate a maximum bather load of 100 swimmers. Planning board had no comment. Building inspector had no concerns. Engineering department, no comment or objection. Police department, no issues. Fire department, no concerns. Those are the comments from the municipal agencies and regulatory people. Anybody in the room or out in the Zoom world want to speak on this application?
We actually have Randy, I'm going to go ahead and promote him.
Is this working?
Yes.
Okay, hi, my name is Randy Goldberg. I am from Interim Corp. My company owns and manages 45 4th Avenue. We were a part of the original permitting for the property. I thought I would just add a little bit of color history. I think George did a great job, as well as the Goldfish Swim School. Two facilities with this operator. We have several buildings in that Gould Street and in the adjacent Wells Avenue Park. And I think just what I wanted to highlight, and I think George did a good job on this earlier, is that this again has been a school that's been there for 10 years. When we originally did the site, really, this was an unfamiliar and somewhat of an anomaly to get permitted. These types of swim schools were not really in existence, and I think that it was the intention of our team to be uber conservative relative to these parking numbers. We did have MDM do an updated traffic report and parking report, and obviously it confirms that the site is sufficiently parked. Additionally, I do want to mention just owning a lot of real estate. We probably have 30, 35 buildings in the portfolio, and what I think makes this site unusual is the parking ratio there is 5+ per 1,000, which is pretty much unheard of for commercial real estate, be it flex buildings, office buildings, retail, etc. So the site is heavily parked. There is sufficient on-street parking. They're a good corporate citizen. We absolutely support it. I think we're a good and reputable property owner in the park, and we submit we support obviously their request to modify and increase the number of swimmers in the pool, etc. Sorry, I'm just outside, remote, and so we support this application. We're confident that they'll continue to be a good operator for the next years. There have been no complaints, be it through our office or the various different town departments, and I think that with appropriate reporting standards, be it semi-annually and annually filed with the town, I think that we could give you the assurance that they will continue to be a good corporate citizen and properly monitor the parking for this site. But again, no complaints, great operator. I don't have anything else to say. And to the chairman, great haircut next door. Their parking facility is much, that building has much fewer spaces than does ours. Again, very unusual to have 5 per 1,000.
Randy,
Probably
about my
the worst.
Could I have your last name, please?
It's Randy Goldberg.
Oh, Goldberg, thank you.
So always commented about my haircut.
It's good.
But we digress.
It looks great.
I fell into that one, all right. But honestly, that's the only time. So I looked back at our decision 10 years ago, and I was quoted as saying, I thought this was a great use of the site, will be well received by the community, and I supported the application. And I think over a decade, you really have. Fellow board members,
Is there anybody else?
is anybody else in the public?
No more hands raised.
Okay. So I'll close the public portion of this, and we'll deliberate and have any questions or comments from our board members. Nick?
I really don't think the parking is an issue. I'm not concerned as much about the parking. I'm more concerned about the fact that, granted, 10 years ago, I was not on this board, I wasn't part of this decision or any of that. And I do appreciate the fact that it was uncharted territory, but clearly, even after the Board of Health came in and said there's a problem or there's discrepancy, I mean, I'm looking at these numbers that you guys provided in March, and the staff was 28 at all times, not 12. So I think if we're gonna end up proceeding, and I don't quite know the mechanics of how, who, what, but clearly, I mean, whatever we put has to be checked, enforced, or something to that effect, because it clearly hasn't been for a period of unknown time.
Peter?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I don't honestly remember an amnesty application like this coming before us, and maybe that's because your folks are much more forthright than other people in town. Yeah, it's kind of striking and annoying to think that this could have happened, but as a practical matter, no one's ever enforcing these things. We can require reporting. I know the former building commissioner was not excited about us imposing reporting requirements on applicants that meant he might get paper that he wouldn't know what to do with because no one remembered what the permit required, and he might not get it, and he wouldn't remember that he was supposed to get it. So we can do that, but I don't have a lot of faith in this.
Suggestion is there is a group that does regulate you, and it's the Board of Health.
Mm-hmm.
And the Board of Health sent commentary on lifeguards and capacity and safety, that maybe that's the appropriate annual submission, and they're gonna inspect again to make sure you're in compliance.
Yeah,
As they come in.
yeah. I mean, it's quite possible. It's also quite possible the Board of Health says, we don't do zoning just as we here don't do Board of Health regs. So I don't know what the answer is, and perhaps the real answer is the answer you gave, which is it's the most people that you feel you can safely handle in the building. I guess, so yeah, I'm not going to veto a reporting requirement. I just don't think it has a lot of teeth. I'm also kind of curious as to whether you feel you're migrating use categories, and whether you want to migrate use categories.
The short answer is no on both of those. And the reason is because the way I view it and the way I've pitched it is that the open swims, both in terms of the number of students, the frequency at which it's offered, and the time duration of which it's offered is a small part of the overall use. So it's an accessory component to the primary use, which is the instruction.
So how do you limit it?
We limit it by when we have a sign up and we have capacity, so if we ever get to that capacity, we don't allow people in. And frankly, we usually have about 6 people in, and it's really, it fits into what is our like academic portion of it, because the brand is built on like swim and play. So the idea is that you take this opportunity to play with your child, by playing with your child, into.
Give me another call. I'm not done yet. It's almost over. Yeah.
Can we shut off
Give me a copy,
Randy's
I'll be up
phone
front.
and mute him?
There it goes.
We got
The way that you do it now,
He'll go to an attendee.
does there need to be a member?
Yeah, so they are a member in order to gain access.
So I can't come in to
They're not like,
Right.
you know, because they're inviting their friends
Right.
into
Right.
the facility, but that, again, that is capped. And that has to do with the lifeguard, as the
Right.
Board of Health stated.
Right.
We follow that
Right.
we do 1 to 23, but like, you're
Right.
gonna, we're always going to be inside of that
Right.
proximity. And if we didn't have the lifeguards, then we can't run it because it's not safe.
So following your,
But the other part of it, the family swing, you limit that to the
So-
families of members.
Correct.
So that I can't show up and swim.
Well, so I think
Without
you
a
can,
member.
you can't just show up out of the blue.
Yeah.
If you have an interest, you can pre-register, provide all the information, and come participate.
Without a member.
Without a membership as sort of a, this again, I said, it's partly a feeder for the membership program.
It doesn't sound like family swim. I'm just saying.
You have to, well, there would be like it's a parent bringing a child in, or a grandparent bringing a child in, or something. We're talking about between 12 and 1 o'clock, and
Yeah.
it's basically an infant coming in the pool, or 2 or 3-year-olds coming in the pool. And
That would be something I'd be more concerned about regulating than the birthday parties. I mean, the birthday parties are, I don't get wound up about, but this kind of mutates into,
well, I think they have sort of migrated a little bit.
Yeah,
And that's a correct observation, and you presented those two options and based in the context of parking. My gut reaction is, following Nick's lead and where I've been the whole time, is it's not that it's going to create an enforcement issue. It's more keeping the management and the ownership cognizant that they have to do this, that they're not going to actually lie or fudge the numbers. So when you have licensed establishments, liquor, restaurants, there's other bodies regulating them to see how many seats, what they're doing, what their hours, and there's consequences of that. So I think at a minimum, you're regulated by the Board of Health. They give you a license for a pool. My suggestion is that's who we ask, and that a copy be sent to the building department as well. That's an easy way to do it. Along with your annual, is your pool permit annually?
yes.
That seems to be a logical time that you do that. You show your capacity, your membership, your hours, your staff numbers, and it's a checklist, and you now have to. So if you go and the next guy comes in, or person is, they all know what they have to do, because obviously if you're running your business, you're not looking at this special permit every year. Now you will. So that's sort of my thought. But I'm all ears for anything that you want to suggest.
No, I mean, I think it reverts back to the way I started. I mean, at the end of the day, if they're saying that this is their capacity, it should be a non-issue. Again, like, I know you guys spent a ton of time on parking. The most I got out of this parking study was blatant non-compliance with the 10-year. The restrictions imposed in the special permit 10 years ago. So, I don't think we have the ability to force the Board of Health, but I think it should be reported to everybody, as you suggested, building inspector, Board of Health, and everybody else.
You can certainly require that it get, the certification get provided, so the Board of Health does anything with it. That'd be up to the Board of Health, but certainly we could, that's fair ask to have us provide a certification in connection with the annual inspection.
I mean, to that point, they came to us, the Board of Health didn't even come to us, correct?
The Board of Health went to the building department. They submitted their report to the building department. Building department noticed that there was a discrepancy with that, and then they notified our office that there was a discrepancy. So that it was the building department's staff that understood the connection with the decision, and they're the ones who identified it. But they were getting those, but they were the ones who made that identification.
So I guess they're all in the dance already, so.
I don't have a problem with it. You have to apply for a permit annually. As part of your permit in this decision, you're going to provide this certification, and you can provide a copy of the certification to the building department. And it's pretty simple. And you're filling it out, you're signing it, you're submitting it, and if the building department wants to take an inspection, or the Board of Health is doing an inspection, they want to take an enforcement, they're gonna do it. That's their job, not our job.
So what's our finding on the parking requirement?
I'm comfortable,
Not the conclusion that there might be adequate parking, but what do we think the parking requirement is?
I think the 78 spaces seems to be in the range. I don't think it's necessarily that 73, 76, 78 makes sense. We have evidence and a report and active use, and we all sort of know the area. And it's been going on for 10 years. And you are absolutely correct. You're in an area that is quieter during Saturdays and maybe Sundays.
Of the 28 staff, how many are lifeguards typically?
So that are on the deck during that time, like actually lifeguarding, or how many of them are lifeguard certified?
I guess the answer to both.
Okay, so anybody who is 15 or older is lifeguard certified. Sometimes there's somebody who is training, so they may not have achieved their lifeguard certification, but I would say you're looking at about 20 of those 28 are lifeguard certified.
And how many people are on duty lifeguards on the deck?
So
Random.
which day are you asking?
Saturday, March 9th at 10:30.
Okay, let me, no, sorry. There would be,
On your peak.
there would have been 4 lifeguards on the deck at that time.
Working solely as lifeguards.
Those would be, yes, the lifeguard.
So in advance, they're greater than the Board of Health requirement or the state pool requires.
Yeah, safety is too important, so.
So, any other thoughts? Entertain a motion? Are you comfortable with the 78 spaces?
I'm comfortable with the 78 spaces.
Comfortable waiving any other requirements of the parking bylaw? I think you've requested that as well, right?
Well, so there's already an existing waiver for design.
Design, okay.
We're not changing the parking lot, the building or anything. This is just solely operational.
Got it.
And where this is an amendment, I think that still carries forward.
All right, so you're increasing the number of students to 50, increasing the number of staff to 28. You're allowing family swims and birthday parties. Well, birthday parties subject to the sponsor of the birthday party, the birthday person being a member.
Yes.
And then the open swim, family swims would be ancillary to your use, focused of a parent or grandparent or guardian with a child,
yeah.
guardian with a child to check out the facility.
Yes.
Not 100 people coming in for a family swim like Rosemary or someplace like that.
And I think, and Adrian can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the family swim is mostly members
Correct.
coming in, but there are some small number that come in and check it
It's
out.
something that we encourage of a child who is nervous in the water with an instructor. We encourage them to come in with their guardian to make them feel safe.
Makes sense. That's fine. And because there was a parent inside the pool, that's a deviation from our original special permit.
I don't think so.
Is that a family
Because
swim?
I think, well, no, I think the whole thing with the original special permit was that you couldn't have students in the pool without direct instruction. So it's the lack of direct instruction. So an hour period, so it says 4 times a week
Play
for an hour.
rather than instruction.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And how many, do you want to limit that per day?
Do I want to limit the
Families.
What he read is exactly, what is in current operation, so, and we limit the number of people that can come in below, we limit it to, most days is 25, and then on the weekend day, we limit it to 50, but I don't think we ever get that number of people in, and then we have 3 lifeguards on the day with 50, because I think Nick, you were asking about the lifeguards before, and we have 2 lifeguards on board, then 25.
So Saturday with the 50 people family swim, you would, or birthday?
Birthday party's 25, and then the weekend family swim is 50, which is Sunday from 2:30 to 3:30.
4 guards and 25, you have 3 guards for the birthday party. Yeah. Do you want to get into that level?
No.
Okay. Good. So can I entertain a motion?
Be my guest.
All right, so I'll put a motion on the table to amend the existing special permit from September of 2014 as amended in October of 2014. Pursuant to section 3242, to adjust the hours of operation, increase the limit on the number of students to 50, increase the limit on the number of staff from 12 to 28, and to allow family swims of no more than 50 people and birthday parties of no more than 50 people as a form of open swim with no direct instruction as an accessory to the main use. And to amend the existing special permit with respect to strict compliance of 5115 with respect to parking, with the caveat of yearly reporting to the Board of Health and the building inspector for both staff and student and open swim / birthday party data to evidence compliance with this proposed amendment. And I think that's all I want to do.
I just want clarity on the hour changes. You just said change the hours, it's not.
Yeah, it's in here.
So I had requested 7 to 8:30. I would actually like to amend that to do 7 to 9. 9 p.m. was the approved close time under the prior special permit. Currently, activities end at 8:30, so I track the 8:30, but I think let's keep the 9 just to, so we don't have to come back in.
7 to 9,
7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
7
7 days a
days.
week.
7 days a week.
That's larger than the actual operation right now, but again,
That's fine with me. And I also would like in the reporting data on lifeguards as well. And if we're reporting to everybody, I think we should report to the fire department as well.
So you want staff and lifeguards? You
Yeah.
want that split out?
I'll entertain anything you want to move and notify the whole town if you like.
Notify everybody. So moved.
Life safety, is that the fire department?
Life safety,
Not police department?
not police.
Okay.
Highway.
Conservation, water resource. All right, whatever. Is there a second on that motion?
Sure, I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations.
thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in and having dialogue, yep.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Aye.
See you Saturday.
For the haircut? Oh, you don't want me to cut it.
All right. We're running a little late. Next is an application at 315 Chestnut Street. Adam D'Angelo, he's applied for special permits under section 3.22, 51115, 512, 513, and other applicable sections of the bylaw to use the second floor space at 315 Chestnut Street, which we know very well, to allow for a private school tutoring children in the 3rd to 8th grades, to permit more than one non-residential use on a lot, and waiving strict adherence to the number of required parking spaces and the design requirements of the bylaw. And again, the property is located at 315 Chestnut Street in the Chestnut Street Business Zoning District. Mr. Junta, good evening.
Mr. Chairman, good evening again. This is one of those, just when I thought I got out, they pulled me back in. So the board obviously is very familiar with 315 Chestnut, it having just been before the board, recently to convert this same space to residential. Obviously, that is not going forward, because no sooner did that approval get made, but Mr. D'Angelo came along and decided that was a great spot for him and his new business. So there we go. So in any event, so again, 315 Chestnut Street, second floor, just to remind you, this is the building at the corner of Chestnut Street and Marsh Road. It's in the Chestnut Street Business District. It's a 7,500 square foot lot with 75 feet of frontage on Chestnut Street and 85 feet of frontage on Marsh Road. There's an existing two-story commercial building on the property. It is divided in 2 tenant spaces on the first floor and 1 space on the second floor. The first floor is occupied by Costa's Pizza and Seafood, which was approved based on special decisions from this board several years ago. And then the other side is currently used and occupied by Needham Coin and Jewelry Buyers, which have just recently opened, occupied what was formerly the dry cleaning space.
And they're open now.
They are
Last
now
time they
open.
weren't open.
Yes, that's right.
They
They
were
are now
only
open.
anticipating.
Yeah, the big banner's up, now open.
All right.
They're open.
Good to hear.
And they actually, interesting enough, they have limited hours. They're only open Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and through Saturday, 11 to 5. So they have sort of, I guess, jeweler's hours. In any event, so this is an application for the second floor, the upstairs space, which is the entrance to that space is there's a door in the middle of the front of the building, to a set of stairs that goes up. There's also secondary egress in the back side of the building. As the board knows, this space has been used for a number of different things. Most recently, it was used by an architecture firm for office purposes. Before that, it was used as a hairdresser. The building itself was used by Cheney Engineering. It was used as a vet office.
Cheney Engineering, heard of them.
One of the advantages of this application is that no changes whatsoever to the building, interior or exterior, are required. So this is just straight reuse, clean up, paint, paper, basically, and reuse. So it's a very straightforward application with respect to that. However, it's a little bit different for the residential use in that this is an application for another private school. The swim school was a private school of a different sort.
At one point.
Yes, well, it still is. So this is also
Sounds
a
good, right?
private school.
Used to be.
It is effectively a tutoring use, focusing on children in grades 3 through 8. Now, but when you think tutoring use, you'll probably think of your standard tutoring, and sort of homework help and things like that. And that is a component of the use, but it's only one part of it. Mr. D'Angelo's focus is going to be on basically taking high-achieving students and helping them do even better. So go sort of the next level up. So it's not sort of your traditional tutoring for students that are having a hard time, but this is more for achievers and helping them excel. Instruction will be done individually and in small classes. There will be individual curricula for each student based upon their particular skills, strengths, and needs. There will be a maximum of 5 students for any group instruction, and the maximum of 2 groups at any time. So the maximum number of students that would be on site at any given time is 10. In general, there's expected to be 2 instructors present. However, on occasion, there might be a 3rd instructor. So maximum number of instructors would be 3. The hours of operation are expected to generally be 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. This is primarily an after-school activity. And in connection with that, as you might expect, on early release days, it would open a little bit earlier. Also, potentially, on weekends, holidays, whatever, there might be alternate hours for those time periods. I don't think Mr. D'Angelo anticipates right now being open, but I mentioned that just in case there's a limitation imposed with respect to hours of operation. There are, as the board probably remembers, 8 parking spaces on site. There are 6 on the left side of the building as you're sort of looking at it from the front, and then there's 2 in the back.
Which are no longer gonna be reserved for residents.
So they're no longer reserved for residential. However, because of the nature of this use, I mean, let's face it, I don't know many 3rd through 8th graders that are driving yet. So we anticipate that it's gonna be a high, a basically drop off and pickup situation. So given the nature of the site, we've spoken with the landlord, and the landlord has agreed to designate those same 2 spaces in the back as the drop off and pickup. And the thought process as to why those 2 spaces would be designated such is you've got the shared driveway coming in, and therefore it would be better to not designate the spaces on the side of the building, therefore minimize impact with respect to the traffic flow. And where they are sort of up in the back, they're sort of out of the traffic flow, so again, not going to have an impact. They're also not prime spaces for the retail or for Costas, so it kind of works.
That
all the
whole
way around.
discussion helped us.
Yes. always progress, moving forward. All right, so, so those two spaces would be designated as basically, short-term, or be designated as the drop-off spaces, but could be used by the other tenants when, when this use is not in operation.
It'll be signed.
Yes. With respect to the parking demand, the second floor when you take into account the second floor prior use as office, the parking demand for the building was 25 spaces. That's 15 spaces for Costas, 4 spaces for the retail downstairs, and 6 spaces for the office upstairs for 25. When you run the numbers based on the school use, and for this purpose, I again did it 2 ways because it doesn't clearly fall within any category in the bylaw. While we do have the category for high schools, vocational, college, and so on, that doesn't clearly apply to sort of after-school programs, young children programs, things like that. But if you do that, the standard for, under that category, is 1/2 of design or enrollment. In this case, the design or enrollment is 10 students, half of that would therefore be 5. So that would be the parking demand that way. I also looked at it applying the same standard that the board applied for the Code Whiz school, which is actually in the building across the driveway, which, if you recall, is basically a similar kind of use. It's a private school, essentially instructional use for young children in coding and STEM subjects. And for that one, the parking demand was calculated based on 1 parking space for staff, plus one parking space for every 5 students. When you apply that to this instance, you wind up 3 staff, maximum 3 staff is 3 parking spaces, 10 students divided by 5 is 2, 3 plus 2 is 5. So either way, you come up with the same result, oddly enough, but just a quirk. So I would submit therefore the calculated parking demand is 5. When you put that into the numbers for the overall building demand, it winds up that the parking demand for the building now becomes 24. So it's a net reduction of 1 space from what the parking demand was previously when it was office use on the second floor, which is therefore a net benefit or a net improvement in the parking situation. Still requires a parking waiver. Because the parking spaces don't comply with the design requirements, that triggers the need for full compliance, which therefore requires the parking waiver for a number of spaces. I won't go through all the ways in which the parking spaces don't comply. It's in the memo. It's the same things as last time. Basically, they primarily doesn't comply with the setback requirements. So the use is a good use. It will help students in the town of Needham. Should be a great use for that second floor. Should work well with the 2 uses on the first floor. Shouldn't provide any real impact to parking. I mean, the fact that it's really short-term, quick turnover, only limited times a day, means that it's going to have minimal impact on the property or the neighborhood. So we ask that you approve the special permit for a school, private school, and special permit for parking there.
Residential approval brought it down to 21 spaces. That was the demand for that property under the.
For residential, right?
Yeah,
Which was,
did you record the special permit?
Nope.
No.
because I think it was literally either the day I received the decision or maybe the very next day that I found out that this was coming
This
along.
is a really brilliant decision. It's a good one.
Maybe you can write it again.
We don't write decisions anymore. We review. Okay, for the record, do you want to say anything about your school, your plans?
Sure, my name's Adam D'Angelo. I taught in Needham Public Schools for a handful of years. My wife has been teaching at NPS for going on 12 years, so pretty well embedded in the community. I've taken what I learned teaching the public schools and then found my passion with working individually with families to tailor a curriculum to exactly whatever a student's interest is. It's the reason that somebody moves to Needham, a million reasons, and one of them is the schools are fantastic. But as a public school, there's limitations. I can sort of plop in a little bit of the added after school. The location's perfect. I love that it's walking distance to different schools. You've got some of the older kids that'll make use of it. In that sense, those upper elementary into middle school. And I hope very much that the board sees it the same way.
All types of courses?
Yeah, so I've done everything over the last handful of years, from industrial arts to working using an app called Wealthbase to do fantasy stock market. So there's really no limit. If somebody comes in with an interest level, if I already have knowledge in it, we'll run with it. If I don't, I'll say, I don't know about that yet. Let's go figure it out. So,
Good, great.
thank you.
For the record, the planning board had no comment. Building department had no concerns with the fire department. No comments to share, Board of Health, none. Police had no issues. And engineering had no comments. Anyone here in the public wishing to speak on this application? If you would, we need you on one of the microphones.
You need to go.
No,
No,
really,
come
it's
up here.
being broadcast on cable and they can't pick you up. So I think you're gonna have to come on up and take George's microphone, or that one right there, it's great.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Beej, and I'm right adjacent to the property that at 331 Chestnut Street. Where I'm right next door, and actually we share the property driveway together with 317 Chestnut Street. And I really commend the putting a school there. I think it's a great idea to do that, and the efforts. But there are a lot of issues that go on in that area that you may not be aware of with parking. And parking is really at a premium. And I don't know where you get your numbers from, or spaces, or this or that. You've only got like 8 spots available. And you've got Costas Pizza, who's constantly bringing their traffic in and parking on our lot, especially during our rush hour, when we have patients coming into our building and patients coming into Code Whiz. So, and I've allowed that to happen because I don't want to deter any business from Costas. So I allow them to do that. And now we're instituting another school upstairs, which is really not a drop-off thing. People are going to come in. They're going to park their cars. They're going to go upstairs, and they're going to listen or whatever the class is going to be, because that's what they do. In orthodontics, it's the same thing. The mothers park their car, and they come in, and they sit in the waiting room. So if they think it's going to be a drop-off and a pick-up, I don't think that's going to really happen. I mean, I'm all for the school, but if they can figure out a way that they can designate parking in other areas, and I mean, I have a fiduciary responsibility to my tenants to make sure that they have available parking for their customers. And as it is, I'm already getting the customers from 317 coming over to our parking lot next door. So, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, like I said, I don't want to deter any businesses from coming up there, but I just want you to know the parking is really a premium there. And going around that easement around the back of that building, you just can't be stopping off and picking up and dropping people off. I mean, that's a thoroughfare. People come around there all the time, and people park their car right in the middle of the road, and patients and other customers can't get around. So it's going to be a big bottleneck. So it's just not, that's been a parking issue for years. And I've been in that building for 31 years, and I look through my picture window and I see exactly what's going on every day. So, I mean, I really want the school to go there. I think it's a great spot, but if we can somehow figure out a way to get a better parking, I'm all for it. It's just that his time is the same time as my tenant has her orthodontic patients come in. When Code Whiz comes in, they're all coming in at the same time. It's going to be between 3 and 6 at night. So I just don't see where the mothers are going to park. And plus you get the flow over from Costas. So it's, you said you have 3 people that are going to be working there upstairs. Where are they going to park? They're going to have find spots to park. And that's in addition to the parents that are coming in with their kids. So I just want, the zoning board, the planning board to be aware of this. I'm okay either way, but I just want them to know that it's going to be it's tight as it is, so.
Thank you for coming in and telling us what you've observed all these years and
Yeah.
what you say and your thoughts.
Okay, thank you.
Great. If you want to address anything that Doctor suggested or had comment about, feel free.
Yes, so having handled the Code Whiz application as well, it is a tight situation for parking. I would say, considering that the upstairs could really be used for office use with full, under the bylaw, 5 spaces up there, but in practice, who knows how many. I actually think this use, from practical standpoint, although it will require probably some management with respect to the pickup and drop off, in terms of parking impact, if that's managed, this should provide less of an impact than the use that's allowed by right of the second floor for office. So, well, the reality is, in tight areas like this, there's always potential for issues with parking. It's just unavoidable. This is the type of use that provides the best opportunity and the best chance to manage them and with the minimum impact.
How can you perhaps, in your operations, dissuade parents from hanging out?
I can speak on exactly that. So I have, with relative confidence, I can say that with 3 employees, there'll be 3 cars. There will have to be something in place for drop off and pickup. I'm happy to hear board's recommendations, work with that. Quite simply, I don't want the parents up there taking up space and hanging out. I love the parents, they're wonderful, but it takes away from what I can accomplish in that time. So plain and simple, make it clear to the parents, it's a drop off and pick up, it's not a come up and hang out.
How long are your sessions?
Usually 90 minutes, so there's enough time in between, where even if we're doing 2 groups at once, I think it's a matter of minutes for drop off and pick up. You can see in elementary school, send everybody up the drive line in a matter of 30 minutes.
Is there any way you can persuade or encourage your staff to park elsewhere?
Well, I'll speak to that. I don't know that I should have to, given the amount of spots that Costa's using, whether or not they're utilizing the spots that by this board they'd had to rent elsewhere, whether or not the staff is parking on that spot. So I would say I'm open to doing anything that I need to do to be a good citizen, to be a good business owner, up until the point where my use or fair, what I believe would be reasonable use for me and my staff is met, if that makes sense.
I would suggest maybe limit staff parking no more than 1 space.
For staff.
One space for the use.
Employee of the month.
Yeah.
So my entire operation could utilize 1.
Staff space.
Okay.
And then you get 2 spaces for the pickup and drop off.
How does that compare to the ratios and square footage for the other buildings on property? Okay, pick up, drop off in 1 staff space, 1,500 square feet. You've got 1,500 square feet on the first floor, and they've got everything else.
So there's 24 on the first floor. Yeah, so maybe that would be 2. If you look at it that way, it would be 2 spaces.
Thank you.
I'm glad you worked that out. So, yeah.
I don't, not to be crass about it, I don't think that's our problem. I mean, you're asking us to let you go into a building that doesn't have enough parking. And perhaps we say, we'll let you into that building on the condition that your staff not park there. Or alternatively, we can say, no, there isn't enough parking.
I recognize that.
So we've come across this in other situations, and unfortunately the parking goes to the swiftest.
Okay.
And the guy who's the last on the train sometimes has to make accommodations.
So yeah.
But I don't think it's helpful to look at whether other folks are using more than their share of parking or anything like that. The parking is what the parking is. We understand it works marginally at best. So I don't really think we should go down that road.
So are you suggesting we don't limit the number of employee spaces? Or are you suggesting that we probably should?
I'm suggesting we consider limiting or excluding employee parking. As we've done in other situations. where
Many
there isn't
times,
enough
many
parking. I mean, there's, I assume, permit parking available in the lot behind CVS.
If you would like to come up, sure.
I don't know what the parking situation is at the building across the street. I mean, everyone had
And
parked
you're-
there for years and years. I don't know if that lost. Maybe you can make an arrangement.
Your
with
name?
them.
Yes, my name is Keith LaFace, and I'm a town, I don't know if this is applicable, I'm a town meeting member for Precinct D of Auckland's and Town Kennedys, and I live on 504 Chestnut Street, so right up the street. And I'm here for a couple reasons. First, because I came to vouch for Adam's experience being a wonderful teacher. Also a wonderful person because he's married to my sister, which the standard for that was even higher than a good teacher for the kids. But I just like to speak to that area. I haven't been here quite as long as the previous speaker, but we've been here for 7 years, and we walk up and down Chestnut Street all the time. I have a 6th grader that just graduated from High Rock, and I have a 3rd grader at Newman. And so we know that area very well. We've patronized the Code Whiz many times. It's a great place for kids to spend some time when we're also desperate. And so the idea of having this, this tutoring, school available is great to us. And I could, just as a parent, and I have a large network of many other parents, we are desperate for things like this. A place that we can kind of supplement the wonderful education that we get in school, give them a little bump. And Adam has he's kind of a magical teacher. And I ask for recommendations all the time about what people's experience with Adam as a teacher. My sister's a teacher who's been here many years. They always say glowing reviews, so I never hear anything bad. Even as an older brother, I'd like to hear some little twig in my sister, but never. And I can speak from my experience, at least, that area is loaded with kids and with families with young children. And so we really do try to walk to as many places in that Chestnut area as possible. And we have always been told, anytime we do these kind of things, twofold, that these educators and people like Code Whiz, they don't want parents to hang around because we're distracting to the kids. So we never really stay, never. I always, and plus, not only is it great to learn about coding and to brush up on your math and language skills, but it's kind of an hour of peace or 90 minutes of peace. So there's no way that we want to stay. So the idea that we can drop them off and maybe go shop at Roach Brothers or run a couple errands, that's really the use that I see. And I have, like I said, I have a large network of many families that kind of speak to exactly the clientele, which is why when Adam told me that he had found this location, I thought, this is going to be perfect. And, like I said, his character is impeccable, and he really does. Him and his wife, my sister, we are part of this community, and there's no way that he would do anything to risk his reputation in town. So I think he wants to be a good neighbor, but I do, my personal opinion, not that he'd ask, but if he's got 2 staff members, the idea that he has to have one that's parked somewhere else. If now this is outside of, but I'm just saying, it seems.
We do that all the time.
Yeah, I can imagine, yeah.
You know what? There's not enough parking.
Not enough park. I was a part of. I've been a part of some of the parking study information, so I do know that this is a problem. But I think that's what we're all hoping for, with some changes maybe upcoming in Needham. That area is, hopefully we'll be all walking places more, right? We have a great commuter rail station there, so anything that we can do to.
See, the issue is you can't have your patrons, your customers park elsewhere.
Right.
So something has to give. This site we've seen this site for many, many years. We've all frequented it. We just had the same application on a residence a month ago, 2 months ago. And so we know it very well. So the question really is, you've heard from your butter, you've heard from a member, is there some accommodation you're willing to live with, knowing there's only 8 spaces? And I think honestly, I can't tell you it'll work, but it's I was trying to have the residents park back there so we wouldn't suck up all the spaces out front for the restaurant and the coin store or whatever. This is sort of the same comment. I think it could work. You're gonna have to manage that. You're gonna have to deal with your parents or
I'm
guardians
comfortable
doing that. I think it's a delightful, wonderful use, but there's limitations. So the question is, we don't wanna say none of your parents can park there. That's crazy. We don't wanna say no staff can park there. So are you willing to accept two?
Of course.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, I don't think that it matters, to,
None seems drastic.
no, it admittedly, but you're talking 6 spaces and potentially 3 cars that are sitting there all after.
But if they're focused, their patrons to the back, then you're gonna have to police it.
So then that's 5 of the 8 spaces.
Nick?
So I was not,
I'll ask you to come back up in a second. Anything else?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
is the other gentleman here?
I don't know. Did you have any comments on this?
Well, I wasn't here in April, so this is,
That was a different use.
is there a lease agreement in place, or are we gonna be back here? Okay.
I have a lease agreement for you.
Lease agreement, okay. I mean, there's 8 total spaces, there's 3 lease agreements, 2 are recent lease agreements.
Yep.
I mean, I'm guessing from what I heard from the applicant, he's expecting 3 spots of the 8.
No, I think, aren't they all in common?
They're all in common, it's
in
first come, first
All in
served.
common.
Right.
First come, first served.
The only thing is that the landlord did agree to designate the 2 spaces in the back for short-term.
Right.
So where it came up in the residence, I was suggesting, since people work from home and take the commuter train, they're gonna take a parking space all day long. They're not just gonna disappear.
That's right.
So put them in the rear, and we gave you that option. You weren't required to.
Right.
Made sense.
Brilliant decision.
I didn't write it.
If only they did that
Brilliant
project.
review.
But anyway, but they discarded it for this use, so let's
I get it.
move on.
I think that obviously we'd like to see as much of our space in town filled. Clearly, the applicant's a strong applicant. Clearly, we granted this relief next door. Clearly, there's a parking problem there. I could be persuaded either way, but I think at a minimum, keeping less employees parked there during this busy time between an orthodontist practice and 2 post-school activity
And a restaurant,
and a restaurant
and a coin store.
and a coin slash something else. I mean, there's a problem there.
Did you want to say something else? But you have to come to the microphone. They want to hear about you on cable.
Okay. No, I just, no, I don't want to, I'm really, happy that we do have a person up there helping the community. I think it's a great venue for him in the town. I think it's really warranted, and he can be a great asset. But I don't want, it's nothing against him, I'm just talking about this parking issue.
Understand.
Because it's a big issue, and it's nothing against his qualifications. The other thing I want to address too is the drop-off area, which is really kind of important. I don't know if they're gonna be pulling into the parking spaces and dropping their child off, or they're gonna going around the back of the building and dropping their kids off or whatever. Because we want to keep that flow. People, since it's gonna be very more congested once they move in, I can guarantee you that. So it's very important that the traffic flow goes in a certain direction. And people have a tendency to go out the exit instead of going in. And that is gonna be causing more problems, because all the parking spaces are aligned a certain way. There's always a few that always wanna go out the exit. So it's really critical that we kind of observe proper, proper movement of the
You
cars.
want to address that, or either of you?
I'm happy to speak to it. You make a great point. I agree wholeheartedly that it's a one direction.
Right, which
and
means,
without-
yeah,
Without a plan in place, we're asking for frustration. We can either hash it out here, or it's something that we can
Yeah,
use as
it's-
part and parcel, but I can include in my documentation to all families and parents a diagram and expected actions during drop off and pick up, exactly when they're allowed to come pertaining to the beginning or the end of a session, a abundantly clear that there is no part you want to sit in your phone, you want to sit and listen to the radio, you cannot do it on property, nor can you do it. I don't know if I can tell them that they can't do it on the public that abuts it, but I can strongly suggest it, I'm
Right,
sure.
right. That they follow the thing. And the other thing too, it may not be a bad idea to get a card or something they can put on their windshield that patients, that customers that do come in for, you know, we know that they are part of the school upstairs, or part of my office, or part of, you know, downstairs a Code Whiz. So we have a kind of an idea, you know, who's parking where.
What
You know
we've
what I mean?
done.
I don't know how we can do that, but it's just something to me, because I can see it happening. And like I said, I mean, I've let it go for the last 30 years, so it's gonna happen.
Got it.
These buildings are
We-
common ownership, right?
We have done this in the past, other applicants where there's a parking drop-off pickup plan. And I think that's appropriate for you to come up with. And I don't think we necessarily need to see it today. I think what we will do in our decision is you'll implement a parking plan for a single direction, proper drop-off times to minimize parking and minimize traffic congestion. Is that fair?
We did the same thing with Code Whiz, I think.
Doc, did you own both these buildings at once, or were you the second buyer of the owners?
No, I own 331, 329 Chestnut Street, which is the Code
Yeah.
Whiz.
But at one point,
tutoring.
these buildings were common ownership, right?
Yeah, they used to be under Petrini years ago.
All right, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the public? Anybody in the Zoom
We
room?
do have one raised hand.
Because it's getting late and I want to get to the next hearing.
Okay, allowed to talk.
Hi there. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes?
My name is Art. Hi, Adam. Hi, George. Members of the board. I just wanted I am a pseudo representative of the landlord. I wanted to apologize for any parking problems that we've been having, and I hope we've done our best to sort of reduce our impact on the area as best as possible. But I do know that we put together sort of a draft diagram of a drop-off plan that George probably has. So I just wanted to let you guys know we have gotten a start on that. And whether it's coming back to you at another meeting or whatever it happens to be, we'll do our best in working with Adam and George to get it done.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
No, that's it.
At this point, we'll close the public hearing and deliberate.
Could you please mute, please?
Peter?
Yeah, I think it's a great program. I mean, you know, I agree. It's something that there's probably a big need for. I think anything that supplements the public education is a great thing. And I'm really not giving you a hard time. I don't want you to think I am. But we do see this a lot, and that is one of our solutions. So I think that if we can achieve a compromise and say 2 employees park on site, and we'll make a condition of our decision, I think, assuming that we vote to allow the special permit, that you do basically work out a parking plan such that your pickup and drop off is in those 2 spaces against the wall as opposed to right in the middle of the circulation route. And you communicate that to all your parents and stuff like that. We've done that a lot, and we'll rely on you to police that, so. The only question that I do have is, you know, typically we do incorporate into our decision a number of students, a number of staff, and hours. And it's not clear to me what hours you would like us to authorize operation for.
Right, so I had put in that the target hours of operation are, it was 2 to 7.
Right, yeah.
But I, you know, if you're gonna put limits on, I would want you to be sort of, you know, more broad than that, because obviously on early dismissal days, it's gonna be open earlier, and there could be other times, because of the nature of the instruction, it's not gonna happen during the
We've
week.
done it
Schools
early
in session.
dismissal.
That's the, yeah, I mean, we could do, those are basically the hours and subject to additional hours and, you know, in other circumstances, like early dismissal.
Before we double click on that, from a technical standpoint, what do we do with the April decision?
I think we superseded it, and I think this expressly kills that one off. You can't have two decisions on the same property.
Correct.
But that decision hasn't been certified, hasn't been recorded, it'll be essentially nullified.
Hmm.
It's just like a plan that gets signed that never gets recorded.
Could have been a brilliant plan. A lot of work into the plan.
We'll let you use it on the next project.
What do you, want to make a motion?
Yeah, give it a shot. Let me find the notice. I move that we approve a special permit with respect to the property of 315 Chestnut Street under sections 3.2.2 to permit the use of the second floor space for a private school tutoring children in 3rd to 8th grades, and to permit more than one non-residential use on a lot. And under 5.1.1.5, 5.1.2, and 5.1.3, waiving strict adherence to the required number of parking spaces and the compliance with parking plan and design requirements with respect to the existing parking lot.
Do you want to put in the parking demand we've determined to be 23 spaces?
23, 24.
24 for the.
Was it 24 for
entire
that?
building.
Yeah, well, yes, and that the waiver is a waiver of 16 spaces, having determined that the parking demand for the entire building is 24, and only 8 are available. And then in terms of conditions, I guess I would say that it would be a maximum of 10 students and 3 staff at any time, with operating hours generally 2 to 7 p.m. subject to extended hours on days of early dismissal or other special circumstances.
Vacations, holidays.
Yeah, vacation, holidays, and other special circumstances. And that this decision supersedes the April 24th decision, which will be null and of no force or effect.
One thing before the null and void, that the applicant shall work with the landlord and abutters to promulgate a parking plan and traffic flow plan and instructions and notifications to parents on pickup and drop off.
And the 2 spaces will be designated for pickup and drop.
And the 2 spaces in the rear will be designated. And we would like a redacted copy of your lease giving you the right to those 2 parking spaces. Okay? If they've given you the 2 spaces for drop-off, it has to be in the lease. Right? And the landlord's on Zoom, so he could hear that.
Does it redact a copy of the lease, or because that might not be in the lease to begin with, so we might have to.
You can amend the lease.
Yeah, we just give you a copy of the amendment, though. Something
Signed by the landlord that says, yeah.
Exactly, that's what I'm getting at.
You can black out the rent. But if it's not in there, every application that has come before has been parking in common.
Right.
So there's a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome to Needham in a different way.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you for your participation.
This is my latest table.
Okay, last but not forgotten. We have an application at 1257 Highland Avenue. And the application is by Need Bob Con, hereinafter called Conrad. And this is for respect to an application at the shopping center at 1257 Highland Avenue, formerly occupied by Bertucci's Restaurant. And the applicant, I presume, is looking for a special permit under sections 3.2.2, 5.115. I can't speak, 5.12, 5.13. Gentlemen, please sit down. And any other applicable sections of the bylaw to permit a restaurant serving meals for consumption on the premises and at tables with service provided by waitstaff, to permit a takeout operation accessory to a restaurant, to permit more than one non-residential use on a lot, and waiving strict adherence to the number of required parking and the parking plan and design requirements. The relief is sought is associated with redevelopment of the premises for the location of Conrad's, a full-service casual dining restaurant. The property, again, is located at 1257 Highland Ave in the Business B zoning district. Mr. Junta, you're here all night.
Here again, yep.
Please introduce your colleagues
I
here.
will. Well, George Junta Jr. appearing on behalf of the applicant. With me to my right is Bob Conrad of Conrad's, and to my left is Paul Dawson, who's a representative of the landlord. Right, so as indicated, this is an application for one of the spaces at 1257 Highland Avenue. It's the space that was previously occupied by Bertucci's Restaurant. That space is, for those that are not aware, if there's anybody, it's located between Cookie Monster and Needham Wine and Spirits.
How do you pronounce that?
Cookie Monster. The space is 6,165 square feet. Space inside, as a little sort of verbal footnote to that, I will say that the planning board decisions for Bertucci's is a little bit more. I think that's because the planning board does it, they do outside wall to outside wall, the square footage is that occupied inside the space. Doesn't make a difference for this because it's restaurant use anyways. So from 2002 until 2023, the space was used by Bertucci's for full-service restaurant with 130 seats and one takeout station. That use was approved by the planning board, but because it was approved and established, we had a conversation with planning board and with building commissioner that if the parking demand didn't increase over a certain amount, that this board has jurisdiction, so we spread that away. And I only say that because, and I'm not sure if any of this board recalls, but at the time of the Bertucci's decision, there was a bit of a dust-up between the two boards as to who had jurisdiction, because the Board of Appeals had previously issued permits for the Baitong Thai restaurant, for, I think it was Firebird's Grill was the other restaurant, which is now where Cookie Monster is, as well as other restaurants and uses in the plaza.
I was on all those. So
you remember,
I remember them all.
So anyway, so this one, and as- when you get to the comments, you'll see planning board had no comment.
We even
'cause
live in Needham
It's
now.
been resolved.
Barely. Sorry, George. He's being rude.
So Bertucci's is gone. They're out of there, and I'm sure at least one or more of you have probably been to Conrad's in Norwood, because it's not that far and it's a great restaurant. So Bob is bringing his concept to Needham to occupy this space. He's been operating a Conrad's restaurant for over 15 years. Currently has locations in Norwood, Walpole, and Foxborough. So he certainly knows what he's doing. He's had a lot of great success. I've been to the Norwood one many times. Great place, great food, great steak tips, of course, is what everybody says. That's their sort of signature dish. But they have a lot of different food available for everybody. And this is one of the things that kind of sets them apart from some of the other sort of, for lack of a better way, pub style kind of restaurants. They do have a full menu that really does have something for everybody. Where some sort of American pub style restaurants only have kind of a limited menu. So this will be a great addition to Needham for the restaurant scene with great food. The proposal for the new restaurant is for 157 seats, which obviously is an increase from the 130 seats that Bertucci's had. In addition, one takeout station. The seats are divided among tables, booths, and bar seats. There are no external changes to the building proposed by Conrad's. So this is just really the interior change out. And I do know that one of the comments, I think, from the building commissioner mentions that he has some things he's gonna work through with the applicant. So we've got a floor plan that we've submitted. That's our concept, that's our floor plan. But we will during the build-out phase, obviously deal with building department on fine tuning and tweaking that. One thing with this, I will mention, as a part of the application, you were provided with renderings, essentially for the front of this whole side of the plaza. Actually, let me back up and also mention, right, so as the board is aware and familiar, this is 1257 Highland Avenue, which is one side of a decent-sized plaza. The opposite side is 1299 Highland Avenue. This side has the Cookie Monster, Bertucci's, and the wine and spirits.
Call it Cookie Monster, it's.
The name is.
It's the way it's
Oh,
spelled, you know?
G-A-H.
Yeah.
It's not TPR.
And the opposite side has Supercuts, a nail salon, a lacrosse store.
Pure
a
hockey.
Pure
I'm
hockey.
sorry.
Come on.
And a Beth Mason. All right, so the landlord is anticipating doing a retrofit to the front of this side of the plaza. That's the elevations that you were provided. Those are provided for information, for concept, really just to keep you informed, so you have an idea of what
Looks
the plan is.
attractive, looks very attractive.
It's not officially a part of the application before you. When the time comes, it will have to go to design review for a facade
So
change.
you don't want us to, if we grant this permit, say it has to look like this?
Exactly.
I thought it was kind of cool.
You see,
I
right?
think it's pretty good looking.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, it looks great. It's a good. Yeah, so anyway, so there's no exterior changes as a part of this, obviously the sign will go in, that's just a sign permit. The restaurant, the proposed new restaurant will generally be open for the dining room, 11:30 to 9:30, Sunday to Wednesday, and 11:30 to 10, Thursday to Saturday. That's the main dining area, and this is a clarification from my memo that I had submitted to you. So in addition to the main dining area, there are some extended hours for sort of the bar area where appetizers are available, sort of late night snacks, late night apps, right? And those hours will go basically from 9:30 to 11:30 during the week, and then from 10 to 12:30 Friday, Saturday. Now, obviously, that's subject to approval of the liquor license from the select board.
How late did Bertucci's go?
Bertucci's open till 11. But even though they had a small sort of semi-lounge kind of area, it's a different concept.
A little bar.
Yeah, it was a little different concept than Conrad's.
It was like
So again, for
5 seats.
the bar area, Monday through Thursday,
Yes, 11:30 and,
9:30 in the morning? No, what time?
No, that's what he said.
well, the restaurant is the restaurant
That's what you
outside
said.
hours, 9:30 a.m.
All right.
Right, but that's the outside hours.
And Friday and Saturdays, 10 to 12:30
10,
a.m.
12:30 a.m.
right. So operating hours for the restaurant, generally for the main part, 11:30 to 9:30 weekdays, and 11:30 to 10 Thursday to Saturday.
Thursday to Saturday.
Then the late night hours, in addition to that, that's the restaurant, that's sort of the main restaurant, the main area. In addition to that, you have sort of the bar sort of area or the late night app area, right? That will be 9:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. weekdays, and then 10 p.m. to 12:30 Friday and Saturday.
It's not gonna
Exactly what I
be,
said.
it's not gonna be covered by your liquor license and your
That's
victualer's
really-
license.
that's the-
Yeah, I mean,
that's
I'm
gonna
not
be
sure why
controlled.
I'm not sure why we're worrying about what part of the restaurant's open when.
I only bring it up for two
Okay.
reasons. One, because this board does generally put the hours of operation in there as a limitation. And number two, because we start off the evening where there was an issue with hours of limitation, it changed.
So we have had issues on the back end. Wild Willie's,
Yep.
I remember well, those.
and we've had some other places in there that we were always concerned about the late hours. I think this hasn't happened in many years, but we had the residences across the street who had real problems with the center and some of the uses in there. That hasn't happened in recent Stacy's or Cookie Monster.
I think, so having represented previously Baitong and Right Seafood, which
Right
was
Seafood,
across.
and then
Oh,
Right
yeah,
Seafood
yeah.
and Baitong
Yeah.
together.
Yep.
That was a strange
So,
one.
and there was something else in the plaza. I've worked with the plaza for quite some time. And I would say that the tenants, the operation, the ownership and management, all of that is fundamentally different than what it was.
I understand.
Back then.
I understand.
And in fact, and so Bob is bringing a whole new component. But again, as somebody who has successfully operated restaurants for 15 years and has done very well, he's not, not a startup, a new entity that doesn't know what they're doing and is likely to sort of push the envelope and break rules. He's somebody who knows. I mean, he's been in Norwood for 15 years, and
30 actually.
that's 30.
Time flies.
Well, I just go from what I see.
He just knows when you had a steak to the menu.
Wow. It's hard to believe 30 years.
Flies by. So I didn't mean to.
That's all right. No, that's good. Clarify.
We want to hear from him anyway, so.
I had to say something, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of years to lose.
All right, so the plaza's change. I think that the late night, while there is always a potential for late night for issues there, I think you got an operator here who's a step above that. It's not likely to be an issue. Plus, the nature of the plaza's changed.
But they're not going to get the CV or the liquor license to 12:30 unless we do that, allow that.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's
And the select board may not grant it. I mean,
They may not.
Yeah.
May give it a test and see how it works.
All right, so with respect to parking, now getting back to that, so I mentioned previously we're increasing the number of seats from 130 up to 157. There are 88 parking spaces in the plaza, but at least at the time of application, there was a recycling container that was taking up a space. I always try and drive by the sites the day of the hearing just to do a site check kind of thing, and today I noticed that the recycling container is actually pushed back. So it's actually outside of the space now. I don't know if that's just happenstance, but in any event, it's no longer actually taking up a space.
You called the landlord, you told
It's,
him.
so there's either 87 or 88 spaces available. The memo is based on 87, the parking memo is based on 87, but there may be 88.
You don't have a cardboard guy driver.
Right.
Yeah.
How he puts the
How he
dumpster down.
pushes it back.
Yep.
All right.
So mindful of the history of the plaza and the fact that we are talking about an increase in seats, we did have a parking study conducted. We had Vanass Associates do it, and Vanass has done, I don't know, at least 4, maybe 5 parking studies for this plaza over the years, including Bob Vanass himself did the original parking study for Bertucci's. So Vanass has a good familiar with the site. They've done a lot of work in Needham. They don't need them. They did a full parking study with respect to the site. And before I come back to that, with respect to the calculated parking demand under the bylaw, when we did the Cookie Monster decision, the board found that the parking demand, and it actually pains me every time I say it, but that's the name, so I have to say it. And she was a client, so I gotta say it right.
It's a great project. If I could get out of there, maybe I'd grab one, but anyway, it's not gonna happen.
I'll hurry along. And do what I can to help you. So when that decision was issued, there was a finding that the plaza, the overall plaza, required a parking demand of 134 spaces. That was with Bertucci's in place, so that took into account the spaces for Bertucci's. With the increase in the 27 seat increase for Conrad's, the parking demand will now increase by 9 spaces based on the bylaw requirement of 1 space for 3 seats. Therefore, the parking demand for this space will increase from 54 spaces total, including the takeout component, to 63, and the plaza will increase from 134 to 143. All this is in the memo, by the way. So obviously 143 is still more than the 87 or 88 spaces available on site. Hence why maybe Vanass Associates do the parking study and see, is there still adequate parking for the actual uses, notwithstanding what the bylaw calls for? And one part of this, of course, is the takeout component. The bylaw says you have to have 10 spaces for takeout, which is I don't know that I've ever seen a full-service sit-down restaurant that required 10 spaces for takeout. Bertucci's maybe came close on occasion, but that was a little different because the concept, it's pizza. So it's kind of like a combination restaurant and pizza shop. And the pizza component had a lot more takeout. I know I used to get pizza there, and you would see people waiting for pizza, but it wasn't they were waiting for the food, they were waiting for pizza.
Long
This is
times,
different.
too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's why they gave you the rules, if you went up and said
Yes.
keep you satisfied. All right, so VAI did their parking study, and they basically found, in short, that there was adequate parking between the on-site spaces and the 94 additional spaces that are available within a 3 to 5 minute walk on site, on street. When you take into account those on-street spaces with the spaces on site, there's 181 spaces potentially available. And when they did their counts of those spaces, they found that there were 53 space at the peak times, the peak weekday midday, which is probably the worst time for parking generally in that area. 53 spaces were available on site and 56 were available on the street for 109 available spaces. In the evening, the Saturday evening, which is maybe the peak time for the restaurant, 65 spaces available on site and 77 spaces available on the street. So in practice, there is plenty of parking available to support the use, even though we're increasing the parking demand by 9 spaces. And I would actually also submit with that, 9 spaces, I mean, it's not a nothing increase, but that's not a huge increase. That's a reasonable increase, considering the nature of the use. Now, in addition, BAI also took a look at the Norwood location to see kind of what was going on there. The Norwood location, which is a bit bigger, it's 7,800 square feet, and it has 236 seats, so it's bigger square footage, bigger seats, and they only have a parking lot that accommodates 39 spaces, or 39 cars. Even at that, at all times, Vanasse found that there were at least 3 spaces available in the parking lot. So even in the larger restaurant, same concept, same use, basically, there was always parking available in the lot. So notwithstanding the bylaw calculated parking demand, based on the observations at the Norwood location, based on the observations for the parking available in the area, there should be ample and adequate parking to serve the increased use, the increased number of seats.
Let me address a couple of things. We've had on occasion multiple restaurants on that site. And the parking count went up and the parking count went down. There was a discussion with the prior landowner that the more you put in restaurants, waive the parking, someone at the end is going to run out of parking spaces. That just won't be there. So you had the cooking class place in there for a while. You had
Chef Danes.
Yeah, Chef Danes. You had the Thai restaurant. You had Bertucci's. You had someone at the corner. So you've had a lot of restaurants there. There generally is parking available, and on the street and across the street, and I just don't think it's been a problem personally, and I frequent there all the time. What I would like to hear is about the operation. I don't think I've ever been in your restaurant, and I like to, and people on cable television are watching, and it's perhaps tell us something about the operation that if you guys have been there and know about it, I haven't. So I'd like to hear something about your operation for Nita.
Sure, no, I appreciate it. So Bobby Conrad, I'm the owner, and it's casual dining, it's comfort food. We offer a pretty extensive menu. It's, from appetizers to soups to salads. All the salads have proteins offered on them. We have seafood. Steak tips are our signature. We do, I think, between 4,000 and 5,000 pounds a week between the 3 places, so it's a little crazy. I'm sick of them. I don't really get them much anymore. I'm into the pizza and scallops. But I smell them. I used to cook, so I used to smell them all the time. But it's not it's a sports atmosphere type of thing. I'm trying to think what I could knock your average Joe's a little bit, but a little bit more sports if you want to try and compare it to something. I think Paul and into Foxborough, so each one has been a little bit more designed, a little nicer inside as I've gotten older. I was a sports pub owner when I was 30 years ago, turned into a restaurant owner. So it's really families. We cater families that come in after a sporting event. Couples could sit at the bar and not feel like they're at a sports bar, and families can come in and eat dinner and not feel like they're at a bar room. So it's not a bar atmosphere. I call it a sports because we have a lot of TVs, so you can, if you're watching a game, it's background if you don't want to watch a game, but it's really comfort food, so it's a pretty extensive menu. And then we have specials 7 days a week. So it's always rotating different things in the menu. A lot of craft beers. I call them funny beers. I'm not into the beer stuff. I don't really know. We have 10 or 20 draft lines, but this location will be a lot smaller for the bar side. I think we have on maybe 14 or 13 bar seats. So, some might have 40, some have 30. So it depends on the size of the location. We do a bit of, we do quite a bit of takeout, but not where it's like crazy people waiting outside for hours for pizza.
They were just slow.
Yeah, yeah, so we, you know, all my GMs have worked with me for a minimum of 15 years, and we got to try and keep our staff, so they kind of, we kind of know what we're doing that way. We have a pretty tight ship that we run with our managers, and not just, you know, they're full-time. We have 2 managers on site at all times, pretty much on the weekends, 2 all the time, so we have somebody running the ship at all times. So you know, we're very lucky. I have great help, and I've been in some great towns, which we're really community involved. We like to get involved with the sports program, the schools and the churches, so we do a lot with that. That's kind of our thing. Is I always call that our second niche to steak tips. Really, we really like to be involved.
So I think it's remarkable and really fantastic that a restaurant owner of a small chain is opening a new one. It's tough in your business, and especially coming out of COVID, and that's fantastic. There's been a loss in that center, and I think everybody in this community has gone there and looking for that store to be leased out again. When you say TVs all the place, in the dining area TVs, or just the sort of the bar area, or is it sort of a sports bar type of concept where TVs are all over the place?
Yeah,
which I like, but
yeah, so they're not on, the volume's not on, so they're kind of like just background, you know. So we have, you know, some of them, like our newest one in Foxborough, we opened that 13 days before COVID. You know, it was a Waxy O'Connor's, and we literally, you know, had to close 13 days later. So, yeah, so we survived that. I think we can survive quite a bit, you know. Literally, I opened 13 days and had to close.
Is this bar area or the late night area smaller than your other stores?
Yeah, and I think, not to steal George's thunder, so it's not really a late night. I actually just learned tonight that today that you have to have the kitchen open when you serve alcohol in it. So I didn't know that till today. So it's more we have last call at those times. You know, I can't see us being, you know, that late. You know, so it's not like we don't cater, and I have 25 and 23-year-old. We don't cater to the young crowd coming in and drinking. If the young crowd comes in, they usually come into our place and have a bite to eat with their buddies, and then they're going to go to like Patriot Place or Boston or something.
They've all moved out of Needham, all mine.
Yeah, so mine's still in Walpole. They're in my house. I can't get them out of my house. That's mine in Walpole.
Mr. Chair, I'll chime in. I've visited, I think, 2 of your locations over the years, including taking a group of 10 Needham 7th graders after some racing event or someplace when I had to feed them. Stopped in, and I think half the kids were dying to go back, and I told them it's too far, so we're not going back there. Will there be Keno? Is that in the cards?
Yeah, so I didn't even know that Needham had Keno until a Keno representative called me and said, "Hey, you're gonna put one in Needham." I go, "Geez, I don't even know if Needham, you know, has it," and I don't know. So I haven't really thought about that fully. You know, they're in my other stores.
Music?
I don't use entertainment. That's another thing, I guess, and I've noticed in Needham, a lot of places have, like on a Friday or Saturday.
And can you double click on the function room? Will that actually be a function room layout here that could be used for?
Yeah, so
smaller
that,
functions?
yeah, so for the music thing, I'm not sure. You know, we might do one on Saturday night occasionally, so I probably will ask for a permit for it just in case. So our second dining room, it's kind of might be a function, it won't be at night. It just wouldn't have I wouldn't want to take. Let me backtrack, I'm sorry. My other 3 locations have a separate private function room, so anywhere from 60 to 125 seats. That's actually blocked off all away from the main part of the restaurant and bar. Here, it's a little smaller, so I'm not gonna have per se a functional, but it's gonna be set up where it is if we have maybe a bereavement, a bridal shower, a baby shower, so more during the day. So I talk fast too, I apologize, but
Real quick learners, don't worry.
I know you guys are waiting to get out of here, so I want to go to Cookie Monster. Stop. So I'm trying to get out of here. My daughter, not to sidetrack this, but my daughter said, "Dad, the best thing about this is I can't wait for you to bring home stuff from the Cookie Monster." So I've never been there, but she loves it.
It'll melt. It'll melt.
So I possibly could have that, you know, maybe on a Saturday or Sunday, you know, a bridal shower, baby shower, but I'm not going to tie it up on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday for. We do a ton of like retirement parties, 40th birthdays, 50th, wedding rehearsals. This time of year, school teach, you know, end of the year school parties. So I probably won't be having that there. I definitely won't be at night, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because of number one, it's smaller and for parking. But I could see like a Saturday day or a bereavement on a Monday or Tuesday, something like that, that we might have 30 or 40 in there, and but I can't see it being a
My last question.
Yeah.
Does your concept use like Uber Eats and DoorDash and those?
none. I don't have any outside. That's a good one actually. So, but none, I don't have any outside services. We don't deliver. So it's strictly you come in, get it yourself, and take it.
So you're gonna get off the couch and come in.
Yeah, we have the couch. Yeah.
I don't know how that works anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good, thanks.
And so, I don't know if there's anybody here that remembers way back when there used to be Gino's Restaurant.
Yes.
In a way, this concept's not entirely, but a bit like that, where it's a very family-friendly kind of range of food on the menu restaurant, where you could go in, a single person go in, a couple go in, a family go in, and everybody's gonna feel comfortable at it. And then the big difference is the bar area, which Gino's didn't have, because back then they didn't have liquor.
There was no bars.
Yeah, there was no liquor license, even in a restaurant.
The wettest
Sing-
dry
I had a
town?
singing waiter.
The wettest dry town?
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that. It's interesting.
So it'd be a great addition.
Got it.
Yeah, no, it's a big hole right now. It would be great. Yeah.
Any comments in the public? There's no one here. How about in Zoom?
Must have not last time.
We outlasted everybody?
I don't know. It's zero.
It says 0. Yeah.
We're not talking about deciduous
Yeah.
trees, so that usually sends people home.
Yeah, we have no
They're all in bed.
people
It's
from
started
the
raining.
public.
Okay, so
Call it cooking.
we'll close the public hearing, and we shall deliberate.
Do you wanna read the?
Do you want to read the comments?
Oh, sorry, I'm gonna reopen the public hearing. It's late.
That's what I'm here for.
All right, so thank you. The fire department had no comments. The police department had no comments. And he reviewed the interior design, available seating. You'll hear more about that probably in the liquor license and the CV. The Board of Health have all their normal comments regarding any type of licensed establishment, and George can share those with you. Engineering didn't have any comments. Building inspector reviewed the proposal and has no concerns, and I think that would be it. So at that point, I will close the public hearing, and we shall deliberate. Nick?
I support the application. The place is empty. I wasn't around when there were other concerns about multiple restaurants and whatnot. I think the liquor store use is much more transient use next door. And I think Cookie I'm not even gonna finish it. I'm just gonna say Cookie I think that's a lot of walking, less cars, kids, people, whatnot. And I think the town needs more sit-down quality food. And I'm actually for late-night food options because I'm a late-night person. And I think the more late-night food options that can exist, the better it is. So I fully support it.
Glad he's not a regulator. But anyway, no.
Although I don't know the applicant, he's clearly doing something right if he can survive COVID in the restaurant business and continue to expand. And I commend them for coming into our lovely town.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it sounds like a great concept. I think it really will fill a need, and I think
So
hopefully do very well.
So I'm gonna give you some bad news. I'm gonna delay this for a month because I'm gonna have to drive out to the other restaurants. I always have to do a view, and in this case, it's a taste. I'm only kidding. So I think it's from everything I hear about your operation and restaurant, it's a perfect fit for that location, and I hope you're successful. And I'm supportive of the application. And at that point, I'm gonna turn to my right and ask for a motion.
2 for 1, huh? All right.
The joy about being a chair, I don't make motions.
That's a good point. All right, so I'll put a motion on the table to approve the applicant's application for a special permit pursuant to section 322 for a restaurant serving meals for consumption premises, and a table is provided, the service provided by a waitress or waiter. In addition, pursuant to 322 for a takeout operation, accessory to the use, and 322 for more than one non-residential use, and waiving strict adherence in accordance to 5115 and 512 for parking and 513 for parking. Say anything?
Yeah, I'm going to add to it that any transfer of the sale of the business, directly or indirectly, will require an agreement and a vote in support of that by the board. We do that generally in licensed establishments, but we'd like to know who's operating. We know that you're running these businesses, that you have a reputation. You sell it to another chain or another person, which hopefully you will at some point. We want to know who that person is. We've gone over that a couple times. Peter, are you supportive of that?
Yeah, I think that's where we landed, was that we were gonna limit it to licensed restaurants.
And do we have to,
We have a bunch of usual conditions too.
for any restaurant, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So you want to read some of them?
yeah, I mean, let me throw them out and the board can decide
Yes.
which they think are. So the maximum seating will be 157.
Agreed.
Hours of operation, I don't know what you want to do with, if you want to just bracket them with the widest scope or do it days or whatever you think.
Yeah, we don't really, if you're open, you're open.
Yeah.
If the Board of the select board want to limit you to the front area or the appetizer and things, that's up to them. From our perspective, whatever your hours are ours.
Do we need to put in something about the hours for them to give the license, as you said?
I think we should set hours,
Okay.
but not full service or,
No, but what should the hours be, I guess?
what is your proposed hours?
So if you want to just.
If you were to
just
bracket it,
set,
yeah,
I'd say 10 AM to 12:30.
I'm fine with that.
That's fine.
Fine with that, 10 AM to 12:30.
That's fine.
You want to do a 12:30 on a weekday? Give them 12:30 Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And what do you want,
11:30 then on
fine.
Fine.
11:34.
10 AM to 11:30,
Wednesday.
11:30,
Close.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sunday through Wednesday.
Sunday through Wednesday.
Needham's, I don't wanna get, is Needham noontime or 11:30 for restaurant with liquor, so before we put that in there. Some towns are 12, I'm not sure.
We're talking about the,
They're gonna give you hours.
Oh, for hours.
This is
That's
it,
the
yeah,
bracket hours.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
I got you,
yeah,
I got you, I got you.
You don't have to. It'll be,
Yeah, yeah.
it'll be inside that time limit.
Right, gotcha.
All right.
Staff?
We didn't get into staff. I don't know that we care,
I don't
It's the parking.
right? But the parking's driven by the number of seats.
Right, and I would submit that there was no restriction with respect to staff for Bertucci's, so.
That was the planning board. Okay.
It worked.
We did note in the lease that the owner would use reasonable efforts to cause his employees to park on street spaces or the 1299 side of the property, which generally closes down at 6 or 7 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Okay. You want to
Uh,
add that in?
Sure.
Okay.
Limit to one takeout counter. I don't disagree with you, George. Waste will be controlled and stored in a dumpster for timely removal and be picked up no less than 2 times per week, the usual stuff there. Periodic pest and vermin inspection, treatment is necessary. Deliveries, do you want to talk about deliveries?
Yeah, that's always been a big.
I'm surprised no one came on those.
Well, I think the center's changed. I think your ownership has changed things, and I think the community has accepted it.
Yeah, so
Done a
one thing
good job.
people used to complain about was deliveries and garbage pickup. We used to say deliveries between 7 and 11 a.m.
Does that work?
Does that work?
Yeah, so I did meet the gentleman that owns the liquor store. He ended up leaving a while ago. He was waiting, so I talked about the same thing. So on all my locations right now, sometimes the food deliveries get a little later, they get caught up in another store, but we have them all in by 10 o'clock, 10:30. But once in a while, someone got delayed, another location or whatever, and it has gone past that, but I for one don't want to block anyone else's business trying to get in, so we'll have to figure out how to work that out, to make sure they can come earlier, so. But a lot of the Reinhardt, our food distributor, they come at Walpole Notice 7 in the morning, 7:30. So we try to get, because they did a lot, they take a couple hours sometimes. So the liquor distributors, they're in and out within 15, 20 minutes. But still, we have on all hours, it's 11:30 the latest. But I can't control once in a while, someone's.
Things happen.
I don't think once in a while is an issue.
Yeah.
8 to 11:30? Sure.
8 to 11:30.
Okay, all right. And then, do we
Or
want?
did you say 7?
8 o'clock?
No,
No, he
7
said
to
7.
8.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
said
we've
7
had-
to
we've had some
11:30.
between 7,
Yeah, we'll do
7:30.
7 to 11:30.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
And do we want any evidence of the right to use the parking other than the landlord's representative here telling us that they have the right to use the parking in common?
I think we do it universally,
Okay.
a redacted lease,
Okay.
or the sections of the lease.
We make reference to common areas of the shopping center. We don't designate spaces. for
Using
specific
common with all
uses.
tenants.
Yes,
With all
right.
tenants.
I don't think so. I think it's pretty obvious,
I think so too. Yeah.
you know. Why would you
Yeah.
move there if you couldn't use the parking?
Yep, and no noxious odors, and I think that's it.
So we've gone into great detail on the smog hog kitchen emission controls or other types of
That
things?
wasn't us.
I know, it was the planning board. I never heard the
That-
smog hog.
Well, I also think back, so when we were talking about 2002, 2003?
Yeah,
And back then, I think it was the state of odor control and emission control was a little different. And I think there was also somebody in town, can't remember what facility it was, but there was some food service facility that had some issues. So I think there were some specific concerns with the residents for that.
you're gonna mitigate against odors emanating out of the premises.
Right.
Yes, like you do in all your restaurants, but that'll be a general
Good practice. Yeah.
practice in here. I talked about the transfer and assignment
Yep,
requiring approval.
I'm done.
My motion took a life of its own.
You shall learn.
You just did volume 1. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a motion. Will you accept the friendly amendment?
Well, I accept the friendly.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Welcome to Needham. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Anything else before the board?
Assignments?
Motion to adjourn?
Assignments to review?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned. All right.